Okay. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, August 21st, 2019, and this is a regular meeting of the Montclair Zoning Board of Adjustment. Notice has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building, sending a copy to the Montclair Times, Star Ledger, and the Herald News. Roll call. Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. Fleischer is excused this evening. Mr. Church?
Here.
Mr. McCullough is excused. Mr. Moore?
Present.
Mr. Allen is absent at this time. Mr. Simon is excused this evening. Ms. Harris is excused. And Mr. Caulfield.
Here.
And Mr. Sullivan.
Here.
Okay, so we don't have the minutes, right? I didn't.
That's correct, yes.
So we have the resolution for the Craig application on Christopher Street. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes? Someone want to move the resolution?
I move to approve the resolution.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we have the Rotunda resolution for property on Park Street. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes?
No changes. So I make a motion to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have the resolution for the Devonovich property on Bellevue Avenue. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes? Does someone want to move the resolution?
Is this the auto place?
Yes. Right, so you abstain. You don't have to just abstain. Okay, someone want to move the resolution?
I move the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? And then I'm abstaining on the next resolution.
Next resolution is HP 37 Orange Road, Montclair, LLC. Anyone want to move adoption of that resolution?
I'll move the adoption of the resolution, Orange Road, Montclair, LLC. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. We have a request for an extension from Cheryl Oberdorf based on not having appropriate bids from her contractors. Any discussion on that? And if not, someone want to move either approval or denial of the request?
That's for a one-year extension.
Is that done? I mean, is it common to have that happen? I've never seen this before.
Yeah, we've seen them, yes. And the ordinance provides for an extension.
Then I will move the acceptance of the request for extension by Mr. Board. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have another request for extension from David Campanero for a variance re-granted on Valley Road. Any discussion? And if not, someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the request for extension. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, that bought us a lot of time. The first application is that of Chloe and Jordan Geary for property at 2 Holland Terrace. This is an application for a variance to construct a new in-ground pool. The property is in the R1 one-family zone and is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 19 and Block 2501. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 3056A to permit a swimming pool setback to a side property line of less than the required 15 feet. Variance is also requested from Montclair Code Section 3056C to permit a swimming pool setback to a rear property line of less than the required 10 feet. Our taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes.
Would you both raise your right hands? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
Would you state your names and addresses, please?
So we got Jordan Geary, 2 Holland Terrace in Montclair. Lawrence Court, the architect project, 15 Union Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey.
And Mr. Quirk, you're still a registered architect in the state of New Jersey in good standing?
Okay, you want to explain what you're proposing to do on the property?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Hear me okay? Hello. So about 7 years ago, my
wife and our 2 children, we moved into our house on 2 Holland Terrace. It's like our dream home, and we wanted to make this backyard, which was quite small and old and needed updating, into our dream backyard. And we realized that we have a detached garage that needed to be reinforced and fixed up, which we were planning on doing. We were going to put a new patio in. And while we were in the process of doing this, we said, what else could we do to make this our forever home? Excuse me. And my wife and I, Chloe over here, we contacted the services of Mr. Quirk. We went through a list of kind of dream items that we would have, and specifically settled on a pool. We asked him where on our property would this work out, and it's not a large pool, it's a small one because you have a very small property. Where could this work, where it would be of the least obstruction to anybody, because we are on I guess like a large public area, a corner adjacent to Edgemont Park. And he located this this spot. Is it okay to show these? Okay, great.
Okay, we're going to mark this photograph as Exhibit A1.
He marked this spot as the most private area that we had, as a spot that would be ideal for a pool, simply because it would be away from Edgemont Park, away from both of our front yards, quote unquote, because we have a corner lot. Also, we have a garage that's visible in the photo, that detached garage that we would be updating. That would serve as a barrier as well between this spot and the road. I will also mention that this entire backyard property, we recently spent money to fence in entirely. The fences are anywhere from 4 feet to, I believe, 7 feet is the highest, with no more than an inch between each spoke. So when we were looking at this, we said, this seems like it would be an ideal spot, and I guess given the smallness of our backyard, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like the only spot that we could do something like this.
It is, and as you know, the corner lot entails hardship right off the bat. They have 2 front yards, one along Holland, one along Valley. So there's a distance of 14 feet from the furthest projection of the rear of the house to the side of the existing garage. So there's really no space that you could place a pool there. So the logical location would be in that rear right corner. It is a very small pool. It's roughly 144 square feet. It's going to be set back 3 feet from the side property line and from the rear property line.
Mm-hmm. I will also just add, because we wanted to do everything, I guess, by the book through the town, I just want to say thank you to Graham, because we've been contacting him like every other week with just questions of how we could put the paperwork in properly, but also, as part of this plan originally, there was like a fire pit, and showed him the plans, and he said, that's not going to work. That's like, a structure you're going to be building with, this being part of your front yard, that won't work. And so we stripped that, and we're very big on making sure that every single part of this, except for this pool, which required this variance for the setbacks, was by the book, and that everything would work. So, this has been kind of like a year and a half long project, and open to any questions or thoughts.
My question to the architect: have you designed pools that are close to property lines like that?
Have I ever?
Yeah.
I've never had a property this congested in the backyard where I had to place the pool here. I've located pools in other projects, which not necessarily in Montclair, and did not need a variance.
Mm-hmm. Are your neighbors concerned about this?
No, and that was actually a really important thing for us. We are very close with our neighbors, literally and figuratively, and We had our neighbors actually over on the Valley Road side last night. We took them on a tour through the property. We showed them exactly where it would go, and we got their approval and acceptance. We also, our neighbors on the Holland side, we met with them, took them through the entire schematic, the plans, and they gave their acceptance. And that was very important for us simply because it would be something that would be close to them. There's also advice from Larry right off the bat. He's like, you really should make sure before you even we think of anything that this is okay with them, because they're crucial to this entire process. And then beyond that, we sent, I think it was, to the 18 additional, neighboring properties that notice. And I don't think anyone's here to dispute, so.
Gotcha.
Other questions from members of the board? I guess just so I understand the table and chairs, the two items closest to Valley Road, what are they?
Oh, those are lounge, you mean, that's shown on the drawing? Those are lounge chairs. That's where we initially had a fire pit, and we revised not to place it there because it is a front yard.
Mhm.
There are fencing and other requirements for pools. How are you going to meet those?
Well, they had just installed the vinyl fence that runs along Valley and wraps around and meets the corner, the front right-hand corner of the garage. There's already fencing. If you look in that photograph, any update, once this goes before, hopefully it goes before the building department, if we have to install additional fencing, we will. But there is fencing on their property towards the rear of the proposed pool and along the side. That runs to the front, and along Holland, there's a gate there along the gate at the fence.
Have you talked to the building department at all about that? I'm just not sure that ends up meeting the requirement, but
Yes.
I just want okay. I guess the photo shows you have the existing table in the area where you're putting the pool, and I'm not immediately understanding why the pool couldn't fit in that area. I know you have the basement stairs that are there, but if you do it, it looks like you could not put it in the front yard, and other than potential visibility, which could be addressed by vegetation, is it just the visibility reason why you didn't locate it there?
Located in the front yard?
No. Immediately behind the house.
Because as you come down the steps, they have very small children. Though, before I mentioned, there's a 14-foot distance between the furthest rear projection of the house and the side of the garage. But actually, if you look at those existing steps, and we need those steps because of the grade difference between the patio and the first floor, we need those steps. I can't eliminate those stairs. Those stairs are actually another 4 feet. So there's only a 10-foot distance between the bottom riser of those stairs to the garage, and there's not enough space. And plus, I don't want somebody coming down those steps at 2 feet or 3 feet, and then they're in the pool. So this is put off to the side so that there would be no risk of anybody falling into the pool once they come out of the back door.
And I will also just add, because we knew that we would require a variance for this spot, we looked at this as our first initial, let's put it here spot. And just again, with the stairs, with the fact that we couldn't have it beyond the front of the house, and just the amount of space, and the fact that to get into the garage, the door you need to get into the garage is over there. We unfortunately just couldn't make it happen, and so that's why we moved it over here, primarily for safety reasons. So,
Graham, just so I understand, that the front yard would actually be measured from the westernmost limit of the enclosed
That's correct,
porch.
yes. Mhm.
Any other questions from members of the board? Mr. Moore?
Have you looked into drainage for the pool? Because it's so close to the property line, it'd be easy for it to kind of spill over into the neighbor's yard or anything like that.
We haven't had an expert do that yet. More than happy to do that. I will say we have come to realize, and our neighbors have also told us, is that our property is actually the spot where all the water drains from those two adjacent properties. In fact, this spot in the photo where all the grass is usually is a bit of a moat. I think it's part of the reason that we're looking to upgrade this backyard is all of the rainwater, the two adjacent properties are pitched towards our property. As far as anything beyond that, more than happy to look into it.
I think so. I think that you need to kind of set up some sort of a drainage system or trench, especially if you're already having an overflow into that area that would
Mhm.
only exacerbate with the pool.
Absolutely, and we actually did discuss that, having a drainage area on the perimeter to make sure that any sort of water would not be collecting.
And as the architect, you haven't put anything together with that.
And then we would install basically a French drain around the perimeter and run it to a dry well.
So I guess a big concern also would be in the winter, if it may freeze over or anything like that. That's just one little piece outside of just actual overflow. And it just being so close to the property line also, making sure that it's structurally sound.
That is a big thing for us as well. The structurally sound, we already did meet with one pool company, this guy, Derek Durden, and he came in and we said, is there a way for us to make sure that this is 100% structurally sound so that there would not be any possibility? And he said, when you are installing drains, there's definitely ways that you can prevent this. And, he had said if we were to work with him, he could ensure that. So that is definitely something we looked into, though.
How would the pool be drained?
I don't know.
Sorry, what's the question?
Yeah.
How
it
would you
be
drain the
drained?
pool? At some point, you can't have the same water in there forever.
Yeah.
I have a pool, and the only time I drained it was just when we changed the liner. I don't know if this is going to be a liner yet of this type of pool, but if it is, then we'd have to drain it to. It's a good question, whether or not it goes onto the street or it goes elsewhere.
The other thing I will mention too is this company that we were talking with about, could you perform this for us? One thing that he had proposed that my wife and I had said would be probably where we would go with this is, he said that there's something called a spool now. A spool is a all year round pool because it is heated. It's kind of like, since this pool would be small enough, it's something that during the winter we could theoretically have kind of as like a hot tubby type thing. So he said that there's a possibility it might not have to be drained.
The pool would be 4 feet deep, is that?
Mhm.
Other questions from members of the board? Are there any members of the audience who either have questions, testimony, comments, anything you want to say about the application? Okay, anything further either of you want to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
I guess honestly, just a thank you to Graham, honestly, for just helping us negotiate and figure out this entire process, because this is our first time ever doing this, if that wasn't obvious enough. And yeah, hopefully this could work out. Thank you for your time.
We'll start with Mr. Caulfield.
Thanks, Chair. There is a need. I could see your need for a pool. I mean, the pools in the town are not the, I mean, I don't want to rank on that, but like I had a daughter and their baby pool is 4 feet. I could see the need for wanting to have a pool in that sense. Your other options are maybe like a club or this and that, and then you compare the prices and, hey, I could just build a pool myself. So I do see the need for the pool. I have great concerns about the distances. I I grew up with a pool in the town that my dad had. They forced us to move it 25 feet, and it was pinched, not at the corner, but we had to adhere, because we were a corner lot, we had to adhere to those things. I have a concern of this pool being so close to those property lines. It's just, I mean, I'm a surveyor. I go into people's backyards. I see pools all the time. This would be the first time I'd see a pool. I mean, maybe once I saw a pool like that, but you don't see that very often. I mean, we have zoning because we have, to keep things, clear property lines and stuff like that. I'll listen to my colleagues. I'm not going to rule on this. I mean, you guys seem like very decent people in that sense, and I'd like your dream home. I mean, I'd like you to stay in Montclair. That's important for that, but I'll just sit and listen to what my colleagues are, and I'll make my decision then. Thank you.
Mr. Church?
The project is, it's a big undertaking to put a pool in, that's for sure. I just feel that the pool in the size property that we're dealing with here is overbuilding the lot. I think it's just, there's not enough room in that lot for a pool. When you're going to be very close to your neighbors, although they don't object, you're going to be very close. The fencing is going to be integral because of small children running around. So I think that it's just too much for that size lot. I don't think it, from the photograph, to put it in behind that garage, I think it's just, you're just cramming too many structures into too small a space, and I think it just overbuilds the property. So I wouldn't be in favor of the application.
Mr. Moore?
I see that it's, I could see why he'd like to have a pool. I'm going to, I guess, kind of also agree with my colleague. I have concern with it being so close to the property line, although I do think that it's a great idea, but just practically in terms of how close it is, and with also not seeing drainage already put together, so possibly approved by the township engineer or just some type of a layout that would reassure me that it would properly flow. But that's not my only concern. Once again, it's just where it's located, and it does feel like it's sort of overbuilding. So, I don't mean to be harsh about it, but I just don't think that it would necessarily work there. It's a good idea. I like the fact that, you put in here, you're looking to do a new patio and all of that, and it's good because it'll certainly add value to the home, and that's what we want in Montclair. But just from a safety standpoint, and with the circumference of around the pool, growing up with having a next door neighbor having a pool, and we were out there all the time, there was a lot more space.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of the application. Possibly you can figure out a way to somehow realign it somewhere where it can fit in a better location, but I think you'd have to come back for that.
Sure. I'm also not in favor, as much as I would like to approve this and meet everything they're trying to do. I think, we have, this would clearly be something different than we've ever done before. We've only dealt with a handful of pools, but the issues, it's never been an issue of building this close to a property line, and this is not a minor deviation from what the ordinance requires as to either the side yard or the rear yard, and I just am very concerned with the precedent it would set, and I think the ordinance clearly is intending to keep pools away from property lines. I think there is a realistic location behind the house that would be away from the stairs. The pool is required to be fenced anyway, so it could be fenced, so there's no risk of, a young child coming down the stairs and walking over into the pool. It could still stay out of the front yard, and the screening they understandably desire could be done by vegetation along Valley Road. Do that. I just, they haven't shown there's anything exceptional about the property that would justify the variance, and as I said, I think it would have a detriment to the zone plan. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to deny the application as presented. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I am so sorry.
It's okay.
I really would
No,
like to do
seriously,
this.
thank you for your time. Could I ask a follow-up question, or is that not allowed?
You
Yeah.
can.
All right.
Put it in the front yard. Can we put it in the front yard? And we're 10 feet away.
Okay. I'm not sure you need to. I mean, that's a separate application. You'd have to come here.
But can Graham answer that question?
So the requirement is that the pool can be no closer than the main wall of the structure to the street. So the outside wall of your existing enclosed porch.
So then no.
So that's what the
If
ordinance
it
says.
can't be close.
Can't be closer than that wall.
That would require a variance
So
to do
with
that.
a corner lot, there's 2 front yards, so that eliminates any possibility of where you place a pool, which is a hardship.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're going to stop this. Because of where the front porch is located, you have a very large area that is, somewhat atypically for corner lot, that is not a front yard.
Sorry? I'm sorry.
You follow the line of your porch. Everything to the east of the western wall of your porch is outside the front yard.
That is outside of the front yard. Thank you.
So, I
That
mean,
area, okay,
that's
okay.
giving you 3/4 of what your rear yard is available.
I see, okay.
Okay, and that's, okay. I have to recuse myself on the next application.
Absolutely.
I will defer.
Thank you for your time, seriously, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm recusing myself because I live within 200 feet of the property.
Okay. Okay. Right, the next application is that of Samir Agarwal, owner of property at 289 Grove Street, Montclair, New Jersey. They filed an application for a variance relief to construct a rear addition to the existing dwelling on the property. The property is located in the R11 Family Zone District and designated on township tax maps as Lot 17 and Block 4510. A variance is requested from Montclair Code 347-45B2 to permit a minimum front yard setback for corner lots of less than the required 25 feet. Taxes are paid and the notice is in order.
We should note that Mr. Allen is present for this application. We now have the chairman is recused. Our vice chairman is not here, so we need a chairman for this application. Does anyone want to make a motion to have a temporary chairman? So let's let someone make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Church, motion is to have Mr. Moore be the chairman for this application.
I'll second it.
Mr. Allen has seconded that. All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, would you please, applicants, raise your right hands. Do you swear to tell the truth of the matter pending before the board?
Yes.
State your names and addresses, please.
Samir Agarwal, 289 Grove Street, Montclair, New Jersey.
Sejal Agarwal, 289 Grove Street, Montclair, New Jersey.
And why don't you describe to the board what you're trying to get approved here tonight?
Sure. So the application is for an addition to the rear of our home, the first floor of the dwelling. My wife and I recently had a son just within the last 10 months, and the space, the living space, is what's very tight for us. We have a nanny and we have grandparents that come to visit, and it's just become a very, very tight place. We love the town, love Montclair, been here for over 5 years, or just over 5 years, and we both work and live in both work in the city and commute from here, and this is like kind of the perfect location for us. We've been looking for other homes in the area because we love it so much, and that's very challenging. So we've chosen to expand our home, and we are expecting to have other children, in the near future. So to accommodate, family and some of their needs, we needed some outdoor space. So there's a deck on the plan, as well as another room to kind of accommodate just our growing family.
All right, the variance you're seeking is to permit a front yard setback of 8.96 feet from the proposed rear addition to the front property line along Gray Street, and the ordinance requires 25 feet. Did you look at any alternatives to try and accomplish what you're seeking to do here without seeking a variance?
We did. I mean, it's just the structure today actually has a 6.8 foot from one part of the existing structure. This is less from that. And we looked at other opportunities to do it, and we ultimately end up at a variance regardless. So it's a 10-foot setback from another side of the property line, or at least from my understanding with our architect, what will come in. And this is the least invasive, or would look kind of funny, is kind of what we talked about to set the addition. Because you don't want, the way the property is sitting on the property, on the actual lot is crooked. And, if we were to construct something with a 25-foot variance, then the entire structure would look awkward. And we don't want to create that kind of situation. We also, what I'll add to it is we're very conscious of both doing things right, making sure that the home looks correct. We don't want to come home to an eyesore. So, we recently had this stucco removed the entire dwelling and reapplied to it within the last 2 years. And one of the things we've been waiting to do is put on a deck or put on an addition based on our family planning. And currently, one of the eyesores that we keep constantly walking to is we have a door in the back of the home where we used to have steps we had to remove for the remediation of the stucco on the property. So we want to complete that, get it done. I mean, it's been about a year since we've had that complete, and that's why we're constructing it the way we have it.
Sure. Does anyone from the board have a question, Mr. Coulter?
Quick question, a couple of things. On page 2, there's a picture of your house. Is that the house with the stucco?
I believe so. It should be.
Okay, so it doesn't look like that today. I thought maybe it was like an old, maybe a missed picture there.
Sorry, let me see what the picture is that you're looking at.
Oh, you don't have that page 2?
I have an old plan.
I have this too.
Yep, that's new, and you'll see that this is a floating door.
So do you have this car?
That's it.
And this front, this picture is also.
These are all current pictures.
Those are current pictures of the house. Okay. All right. The rear yard. Is there a big different slope? Like, does it drop down to the back of the house? Is that?
You mean for the yard?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There's
Okay.
and so you'll see in one of the diagrams, there's an elevation.
Yes.
That shows.
And last question, the distance, the real distance between the addition and the property line is 1784. Is that what you read as
That's
well?
right.
Okay, thank you.
Have you spoken with any of your neighbors about this, whether they're...
Yes. They don't have any issues. They'd be here tonight. I actually even spoke with one right as we were walking over. We've spoken with more than just the direct neighbors, across the street and so forth. Not with the chairman, obviously.
Okay. Mr. Church, did you have a question?
Looking at the plans here, it looks as if you're just putting a low sloping roof across a deck.
It's actually going to be a room.
Yeah, I know.
It's an internal room.
It's not going to be, it's just going to come off halfway up the structure.
Yeah, because there's a deck, so it's not going to
It's
cover
gonna
the
go
deck.
like this off the
Yeah, so
structure.
if you look at the current picture,
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't bring a bigger picture.
That's all right.
But there's a door on the dwelling, and that, you see where that roof is? There's a small roof on there?
Yes.
That's the roof that would be extended. It'd be replaced with a new roof that would be over the entire.
Okay. And then your proposed new structure would go to the edge of the building on Gray Street.
That's correct. Yeah, it'll be connected. It's not like, it's not going to be a porch that's enclosed. It's going to be an additional structure that would connect to the home.
I was concerned after looking at the property that the addition seems to get very close to your garage in the back there. Am I
I don't think it's extremely close. Let me see if there's there is a considerable amount of distance, and remember that the yard does slope between the garage line and where the garage and the driveway are from the structure, from I guess the new addition. I don't have the measurement on the plan here.
So I understand what,
But that's not a concern. You're going to be pushing down on that garage. You're not going to have much space between your addition and the garage.
I think it's close to, this is my estimate, right? I think it's about 10 to 15 feet, somewhere in the middle of there. Yeah, it's a small lot as it stands. So we're trying to accommodate the addition and to maximize the use of the land while maintaining enough green space, on the property. So the plan is not to enclose the bottom, right? The plan is to leave it open. And in a limited way, we're having gravel put in closer to the home, but leaving it as grass around it.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question just so I definitely understand this. All right, the addition's going on the back of the house,
Yes, sir.
okay? And your existing setback from your house to Gray Street is 6.8,
That's correct.
and the new setback for your rear would be 8.96,
That's correct.
okay?
That's to the deck.
Okay, to the building, 17.84,
That's correct.
okay. Thank you.
Have you thought about putting up any additional vegetation than what's already existing to create some sort of privacy?
We want to. So we had some vegetation there when I bought the home, but the irrigation was not very good, and some of that has passed, and I removed it. What we'd like to do is put some plants up for that side.
What kind of plants?
Either arborvitaes or something of that nature that gives enough protection. But I do not want to. We've thought about a fence, but we think that vegetation is a better solution for that.
And those typically get about how high? Or how high would you
I
have?
honestly don't know. I've seen them up to 8 feet. Depends on really how you take care of them. I've seen folks have arborvitaes even go higher. Really almost unmanageable higher. So, from my perspective, I would keep them probably around 8 feet, somewhere like that.
Because you're on an interesting lot that has a lot of exposure from the street, it seems like.
It does.
Mr. Agarwal, the deck, which is the new closest structure to Gray Street, is not going to be enclosed, is that correct?
That's right. It's not enclosed.
And is your intention at any point in the future to enclose it?
No.
If the board were to impose a condition that you could not enclose it, would you have any issue with that?
No.
Anyone from the audience that wants to come and speak up regarding this project? I guess we'll start with Mr. Church.
Yes. I drive by that property a lot, going up and down Grove Street. I don't believe that what they're proposing is a detriment to the overall plan for the township. I believe that the only objection I would have, and it doesn't seem to make a difference, is the closeness that you get into that garage. I just just think it looks like it's going to be one big building. You're not going to have much space between, but that's, I have no objections to the application as presented. I would just make a caveat that, as mentioned by our attorney, that exposure under your deck on Gray Street not be closed.
Just to clarify, I think Mr. Sullivan's comment was with respect to, in the future, coming in to
Yeah,
build on
in the
top of the
future.
deck. Not the exposure below the deck, but to enclose the deck as a room, is what I, so, just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen?
Spent a lot of time on Gray Street when I was younger. It's a nice street, nice, a lot of children, very nice. I don't see that you have much choice in what you're doing, you know. This is going to improve the home, and I'm in favor of it.
It's going to improve his life because I won't be nagging him anymore.
Okay.
Mr. Cofield?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'm in favor of it. I mean, even if you look at, take that addition and go down to like where it meets the house, you probably have 25 feet from the property line. It's just that you're skewed into that direction, so good luck with everything, and I'm in favor.
I'm generally in favor of the application. It seems to not be a detriment to the community, but will also add value to the property and the street that it resides in. Also, with your family growing, of course, that means, you don't want a hardship of space, right? So it seems to be a nice addition, and I would place a condition to not have the deck enclosed at any point in time later on. I think it's a great idea.
I think we should just clarify that condition, that it's the deck along the Gray Street frontage, because there is a proposed deck on the opposite side.
So
On the Gray Street.
Right, the Gray Street.
So not to enclose the deck on the Gray Street side. That's what my condition is. And I am in favor of this application.
Someone want to make a motion to that effect, including that condition?
I'd make a motion approving the application with the conditions just articulated.
Is there a second?
By the chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome. Enjoy your home.
We'll take a brief recess to bring Mr. Harrison back. Take a short break. Oh, here he is.
Do I have to publicly?
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Almost. Okay. So the next application 2638 for property at 73 South Fullerton Avenue, applicant St. Luke's Episcopal Church. By correspondence, the applicant has notified the staff that notice was not complete for tonight's meeting, so the applicant has requested to be carried to the September 18th meeting of the zoning board.
So there will be further notice.
Correct. Yes, there will be further notice for the September 18th meeting.
Right.
That's correct. It'll be on its September 18th.
We will see you then. The St. Louis on South Fullerton. Okay, the next application that is DH Development LLC, owners of property designated on the township tax maps as Block 2904, Lot 68, located between 364 Orange Road and 354 Orange Road. This is an application for a use variance, dimensional variances, and preliminary and final site plan approval to construct two family dwellings a driveway, and on-site parking spaces. The property is located in the R1 one-family zone. The applicant requests variances from Montclair Code Section 347-41, and that the applicant proposes to construct two-family dwellings on the subject property, whereas one-family detached dwellings are permitted from Montclair Code Section 347-20, and that the applicant proposes to construct two principal buildings on the subject property, whereas one principal building is permitted from Montclair Code Section 347-27A1, and that the applicant proposes certain fences built in the front and extreme rear corners of the proposed principal buildings, which will exceed 4.5 feet of height, and any other variances that are necessary. Mr. Allen?
I have to recuse myself from this application.
Okay. And Mr. Owen, as you see, we are at 4. My understanding is you were planning to only have one witness tonight and continue with the hearing at our September meeting. Is that correct? And do you want to proceed?
That is correct. You have a quorum, so you can proceed.
We can, and if you want to proceed, we're willing to proceed.
Okay, that's fine.
Since we were planning to be here much longer tonight originally.
And the members who are absent will listen to the tape and get up to speed.
And can also watch the proceedings as well.
Oh, and watch as well. Okay, that's fine. I'm David Owen. I'm the attorney representing the applicant, DH Development. This is an application by the applicant property owner who owns vacant, undeveloped property known as Block 29, Lot 68, located on the west side of Orange Road. The property is located between 364 Orange Road, containing the Windermere Apartments, and 354 Orange Road, containing also dwelling units. This property consists of 23,510 square feet, or a little over a half an acre, 0.54 acres. The applicant, as the chairman noted, proposes to construct two-family dwellings on the property, a total of 4 dwelling units, along with 1 driveway from Orange Road, 10 on-site parking spaces, landscaping, lighting, and related site improvements. The application requires use variances because the property is located in the R1 zone and does not permit two-family dwellings on one lot. The proposal does meet or exceeds all of the required setbacks, the prescribed building height and width, and the prescribed building coverage for this particular lot. As I've alerted the planning department, and I know that you all now know, we will begin tonight with one witness, Joseph Haynes, to my left, who is a principal of the applicant and who is also the project architect. He's a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey, and he's designed the project. I will ask him questions limited to the site characteristics, the building design, certain site improvements, and I'll touch things that were raised in the 2 review memos that we have received. When we return, we will call a professional engineer who will go into some more details, maybe another witness, and also our professional planner who will address the variances. So with that, I'd like to call Joseph Haynes.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Joseph Haynes, with the firm of Dassa Haynes Architects, 16 Portland Place, Montclair, New Jersey.
Great. Are you one of the principals of the applicant DH Development LLC?
Yes, I am, a managing member.
Okay, and are you also a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Would you briefly summarize for the board your credentials as an architect?
Sure. I graduated from New Jersey Institute of Technology in 1991 with a Bachelor of Architecture degree. I received my license in the state of New Jersey in 1993. I presented in front of this board and many boards across the state of New Jersey. I'm also licensed in New York and Pennsylvania.
All right, and you've always been accepted as an expert in architecture.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Chair, you accepted him as, thank you very much. All right, I'd like to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like to begin by asking you to identify for the board what I'll call the gross characteristics of the property, its size, its location, and that sort of thing. Would you please do that?
Sure. As previously discussed, it's a vacant piece of property that, as far as I know, was never developed. It's It's on the west side of Orange Road, as we discussed before. The lot size is 75 by approximately 315 feet long. That's a unique sized property in that area of town. It's 23,510 square feet, which is a little bit over a half an acre, 0.54 acres. And like we said before, it's located in the R1 zone. The adjacent property to the south is a 38-unit garden apartment complex, and to the north, the adjacent property is a 12-unit supportive housing complex.
Okay. And what is on the property presently? I know you said it's vacant, but there are some things on it.
It's a wooded lot.
Okay. All right. Now, I'd like you to describe what you propose for the property.
Our proposal is to put two-family houses on a property. Each footprint is 1,404 square feet, excluding the porches. Each unit will have two bedrooms with 2.5 bathrooms, and the square footage of each unit is 1,440 square feet of living space.
Okay. Does each unit also have a basement?
Yes, it does.
And what will the basement be used for?
Primarily storage. It will be unfinished.
Okay. And does each of the units have other amenities that go with it? And in particular, do they each have porches?
Yes, they do.
All right.
We designed them all to have a residential aspect to them, so it doesn't look like has more of a scale and character to the building. So we have porches for each unit. That's a covered entry to come in. The front porch that faces the street to Orange Road, we turn that porch as a wraparound porch to give character to the
Okay.
facade facing the street.
Does each unit also have a sidewalk?
Yes, it does. In front of the building, they have sidewalks at the approach to the entrance, and in the rear of the building, we have patios for each unit. And in the rear of the building is a place for we have a condenser back there, and we'll further discuss later on a pad for a trash area back there.
Okay, and is there a driveway that comes off of Orange Road for access to these 4 dwelling units?
So as the project is situated, we have 2 buildings that are situated towards the center of the property. Should I point it on drawings?
I think that would be a good idea, and I assume you have with you the drawings that we filed?
I do.
Mr. Sullivan, I would suggest we mark all those drawings Exhibit A1. You don't typically do that. I seem to remember this.
Let's just make sure we're all looking at the same thing. The site plan is prepared by GLPC Engineering. It is dated April 12, 2019, and very revision dated June 13, 2019.
That is correct.
That's correct. And just to further describe for the record, Mr. Beasley's plans encompass a total of, I believe it's 8 pages. There's a COV cover sheet, and then S1 through S7. And then part of that package also includes Mr. Haynes' floor plans and elevations. So,
A1, A2, while we're doing this all, and that's dated April 12, 2019, and bearing a revision date, a final revision date of June 13, 2019.
yes. So
Might have been easier to mark it as Exhibit A1, right?
I propose that. It's up to you. A1? No.
Okay. That would be great. Are we good? Actually, a little bit louder, I think. Okay. The 2 buildings, the two families that we looked at when we were designing this, both with Dave Beasley and myself, we laid out the design after many different revisions over the years. And we looked at putting the two families within all the setback requirements. So all the buildings meet the bulk requirements, exceeds them pretty much around all 4 sides. Footprint-wise, we're under the required footprint requirements, lot coverage, and so forth. What David was asking me about was that the driveway width is 18 feet wide, and it runs along the north property line, along the side of the north property line, and it goes in front of both buildings. And as And as you go up the driveway, initially when you enter the property, it's a little bit steep going in. I don't know if you've driven by the property. As you go by, it has a little steep hill going up and then it flattens out. So looking at different designs and sizes of the buildings, by putting the buildings back in the middle of the property, it's where it plateaus and it flattens out. So it gives us our best opportunity to have flat sidewalks there and do the least amount of disturbance to the property.
So let's give the board a little bit more perspective. I think they can tell from the floor plans and the elevations, but since you have sheet S2 showing, can you identify where the front doors of these units face, where the rear patios are?
Okay. Like I said before, it was important to us to give a presence of the front door of the front building to the street, so as someone drove by, it looked like another one-family home going down the street, like we have it on the opposite side of the street of Orange Road. So the first building, which we call Unit 1A, the front door faces the street with a wraparound porch. So the front door is situated on a bump out on the northern side, but it faces the street, and it gives it the resemblance of a front door of a main house of a building. Then the other units each have their separate own entrances on either side of those bump outs, because they're identical two buildings.
Okay. And do those front doors face generally in a northerly direction?
Actually, they face in an east and a west direction, an east and a west direction.
They faced Orange Road and then toward the rear of the
And toward the rear,
property.
correct.
Because of the undulation. Now, I think this would be a good time to show your rendering.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we do that? A1?
You got it.
Just write it right on there?
Yes. So A1 is a colored rendering, and maybe you can use that to explain the driveway, which is visible, but also the porches and doors that you described before.
Yes, okay. So again, you can see right away, the driveway that I described is 18 feet wide, and it serves along the north side of the property. And as I was describing before, we have a porch that goes across the front of both buildings on the north side, and the front building, it wraps around along the Orange Road side. So it has an entrance, and I'm pointing to the door, which is behind the columns, recessed in the corner.
Okay.
And-
Have you provided on-site parking? You may have to refer to your site plan.
So I'm going back to drawing S2. On drawing S2, once again, we'll go back to the driveway as it comes up the north side, and I propose 10 parking spaces on the property, 4 in between the two buildings, and then another 6 behind the second building.
All right, so let me stop you there, and I'm going to get into the review memos as I ask you this question, or several questions. This project, as a residential project, would be governed by the New Jersey State Site Residential Improvement Standards?
That is correct.
And how many parking spaces are required per unit?
1.5.
So what would be the total required for this particular project?
6.
And what are you proposing?
I propose 10.
And please explain to the board why you're proposing 10.
Our rationale to 10 was not to over-park the site, but our rationale was that for each unit, they should have 2 parking spaces. That's the location of the property. We're not on Bloomfield Ave. We're not in a downtown setting. Most likely, there's going to be a couple here, and they're both going to have 2 cars in the 2-bedroom units that we have. So I thought it was appropriate to make sure they at least had 2 parking spots each. And then I also felt it was appropriate enough to have 2 guest parking spots on the property, not to burden the parking on Orange Road.
You're able to do that without violating any setback standards?
Correct.
And can you point out for the board where those parking spaces are, how they're distributed?
Like I said before, there's 4 in between the 2 buildings, and there's another 6 behind the second building.
Okay. Have you also proposed a landscaping plan for the property?
Yes, I have.
All right, and would you briefly review that?
Okay, I'm referring to drawing S5. S5 has the landscaping and lighting plan on it. And we tried to maintain as many of the trees on property that we could. Unfortunately, some of the trees are a little dense where our driveway is coming in on the one side. That was the right spot to put the driveway, so we had to take a few trees along that side down. We kept as many trees we could towards the rear of the property and in between the buildings where we could, and we even, in the front property, in the front yard, we located our detention system not to interfere with the two existing trees out there. So we were conscious of the existing trees. There's a lot of trees out there that are in bad shape to start off with that need to be taken down. There's trees that have fallen over the years out there. There's even a tree that fell on the adjacent property that we 5 years ago that caused some damage to the parking lot, to the garden apartments. So there's a lot of trees that have seen their age that are dying and so forth there that have to come down anyway. But I surveyed the property many times to determine which trees should stay and how they could stay.
All right, so let me ask you this. Are you familiar that Montclair Township has a tree ordinance?
Yes, I am.
And are you willing to comply with the terms of the tree ordinance when it comes to taking down a tree, replacing the tree, or doing whatever the ordinance requires you to do?
I do.
Okay, just briefly describe for the board where you want to locate the landscaping and, generally what you're proposing.
So, and with Dave Beasley, my office together, we worked on the landscape plan. And what we had looked at doing is we read through the Montclair ordinance and talked about using plants that are native to the area, which we did. And we designed planting beds in front of the buildings on both sides, the front and the rear of both buildings, to soften the parking area and to give a look from Orange Road on the front of the building.
Okay.
So.
And are you also proposing a lighting plan for the parking area and the sidewalks up to the front sidewalk?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And one of the review memos, I believe by the board engineer, had some questions about the distribution of the foot candles. Are you willing to make adjustments so that you have those distributed the way that he thinks they'll work?
I can. We could work with them to incorporate it. Our ultimate goal was to not light this up like a retail parking lot. Our ultimate goal was to make it look like a residential 1 or 2 family home in a neighborhood. So we didn't want to have big light poles running down the parking lot. We looked to keep it as soft as possible with our lighting and still providing proper safety lighting. So we lit the path up with little pathway lights that would give proper walking lighting for safety and to walk up to the front doors. And then we lit around the building properly, and which gives proper lighting connecting the 2 buildings so they could walk across. And then we put 1 pole light all the way in the back that will light up the parking spots in the back. We feel that it's enough lighting. I don't want to overdo it, but I can definitely work with the engineer to make sure he's satisfied with that. The other issue we had, quickly, David, is that the front area, the driveway entrance didn't have any lights at it, but there is a street pole right to the right-hand side of our apron, and that street pole has a street light on it. So we didn't show the light candles, the foot candles for that, but that whole apron's going to be lit up by that street light.
Okay. Are there any comments that you wanted to make with regard to either your floor plans or your building elevations, or have you covered it generally and just wait for questions on that the board members might have? Is that okay with you?
I could just run through the design of it for a few
Why don't
seconds.
you do it?
We'll just do it simply by using the rendering. So, being in that neighborhood for a while, owning this piece of property for a while, I've studied on what we were going to do for a long time. And I know what's important to the neighborhood there. What I think is important to me as an architect, is to make the buildings fit in the character of the rest of the neighborhood. So we looked at doing a Dutch colonial design, which is very reminiscent around a lot of the houses in the neighborhood. If you go down any side street, they're almost lined up. There's a couple right across the street on Orange Road. They're either Dutch colonials or colonial designed houses all around that neighborhood, the Canterbury Park neighborhood. So we were trying to keep it to the same vernacular with a lot of details, with little brackets up on the top, changes of shingles, with siding, shutters on it, heavy trim around the windows, columns and porches, all indicative of the architecture of the neighborhood. So I just want to say we're very sensitive to the side, to what's in the neighborhood and what we're proposing to design.
You know, I should interrupt you and ask you, I'm just looking at it for the first time here, and you have some masses in white that are to the right and to the left of the details of the two-family dwellings you're proposing. Just in a sentence, can you identify what they are?
So
I think
just
Ford knows,
in our rendering, we render our building and our property. We kind of don't render the neighboring buildings. So the building to the left of my rendering, that's the garden apartment building drawn. And to the right-hand side is a supportive housing building, the first one. There's 2 buildings on that property. But to really take a little better look at those buildings, we could go to my architectural drawings.
No.
And on drawing A2, you'll see up on the top, we did a streetscape for you.
Okay.
And that streetscape shows the garden apartments, our proposed buildings, and the supportive housing buildings, facades, elevations, and how our elevations, our height of our building kind of matches up with the heights. We're not overbuilding in height, as well as we're not overbuilding the property as far as.
Right. Yeah, and that leads me to ask a question. One of the variances that we're seeking has to do with having 2 principal buildings on one lot, correct?
That is correct.
And the buildings to the right are on one lot, is that correct? That would be at 354 Orange Road?
That's correct.
And how
Supportive
many-
housing has 2 buildings on that property.
2 buildings on that lot, and then the lot to the left or to the south, which is at 364 Orange Road, the apartment complex, do you know how many buildings are on that lot?
There's 3 garden apartment buildings, and then in the back, there's a row of garages. So I would constitute that as 3 principals and then 1 accessory.
Did you have any other comments on the architecture, the elevations?
Not at this point.
Okay. I just have a few more things I want to pick up on the review memos. I think I've covered most of it. On the Planning Department's memorandum, under item number 3, there's a reference to the site plan ordinance that requires exterior garbage and recycling area for multifamily developments. This is not a technical multifamily development, but there is at least raised the issue, might you provide a common trash area? Have you reflected on that? What do you propose to do?
We have plans of putting the trash cans, with garbage cans, located in the back of each one of the units. So next to the condensers that I show, unfortunately, we didn't label them on the drawings, but our plan is we extended the concrete next to the AC condensers, and that's where we have our trash cans located. We figured we'd have 2 trash cans, 1 for recycling, 1 for garbage for each unit, and that they would just be taken out to the street like a regular 1 or 2 family home would do anywhere else in the neighborhood.
So then each unit, whoever is residing in the unit would, on a weekly basis or whatever the collection schedule is, take it out to the curb?
That's correct. So I was trying to make the development have more of a 1 or 2 family residential design than having a trash enclosure looking like it was a multifamily project.
Okay. And I think that most of the board engineer's comments will be addressed by our professional engineer when he or she testifies. There was one other comment raised in the Planning Department's memorandum about sidewalks. You've proposed a particular sidewalk plan. Please explain why you'd either like to maintain that or you're willing to do something different.
In reference to the front
This
sidewalk?
would-
Or
This would be the
ADA?
sidewalks that flow through the project. It's item number 5 on the memorandum dated July 1, 2019. And it's a question that's raised about whether you might add an additional sidewalk area to join the 2-family building to the rear a little bit more to Orange Road.
Yeah, and if you'd like, I can expound. The point that I raised in item 5 in the memo that was provided is just to clarify whether there'll be clear pedestrian access or, good pedestrian access from the street back to that rear unit, which is located at the back behind the primary unit at the front.
Yeah, so what our thought process was, that from the street, you could walk up the few steps on this sidewalk and then walk across the front of Building 1 we did a handicap ramp coming down and coming back up on both sides of that, and they would just be able to walk behind those 4 cars to get to the next building. I feel that's satisfactory. Again, and this is just two family units, and most of the people are going to be parking in there. It's going to be like going to your house every day, so it's not going to be unknowns driving in and out. There's not going to be much pedestrian traffic. I don't really see it much of a concern, and I think we do have enough lighting in between the two buildings.
Anything else you wanted to cover?
I'm okay.
Okay, I have no further questions at this time.
Questions from members of the board?
Hi.
How you doing today?
Thanks. Good. Thanks for the presentation. I mean, obviously, you've had the property for quite some time, and obviously you've thought it through, and you could seize that in this. Obviously, you probably thought the big elephant in the room question is, it's an R1 district. We're going to make it an R2, R4 at this point with if this is
It's not really any zone,
Well, but if you look at the zoning map and the aspect of it, this would have to be somewhat clarified. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to make a statement before we get into this and then the door opens. I'm going to have a witness that's going to address all the planning considerations. I've tried to really limit this witness to,
Okay.
the
All right,
proposal.
I'll hold to
and-
that, but that's a
and the
question that if you
Yes.
were with this site for so many years, you have an answer to that question, I'd imagine, no? Like, in your back of your mind, like, you've been thinking about how the site was going to be developed throughout the times. You
I
would
never
think
looked
that
at it
question would be...
to go which zone would go there. I would never looked at it that way. I always looked at it on which way to develop the site that would best work for the site. So I've looked at more units on a piece of property, one building, pushing it back, pushing it forward, a lot of different ways to design on this piece of property. This is the application I thought that fulfilled a lot of the
I mean,
requirements.
obviously, building a single-family house there isn't necessarily bang for the buck in that aspect compared to what you're doing in this sense. But I mean, I don't want to, open a can of worms for you, and I know you have to protect that. Last question: are these going to be condominiums or rental buildings?
Rental.
Or rentals? Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
I guess to follow up on the sidewalk issue, I mean, Mr. Owen indicated that basically the residents would be bringing the trash and recyclables out to the street, and so my question is, how are the people in the rear unit accomplishing that? I mean, that's 3 times a week they need to bring the cans out and bring them back, and how are they getting from this side of the rear unit to the front of the property?
Fair question.
Yep. It's a little bit of a fair question.
What, I think I have a recollection that at the Development Review Committee, someone had made a suggestion that we could possibly do a linkage sidewalk to the rear of the 4 parking spaces that are between the buildings. Do I remember that? And even using a contrasting material that would delineate it, almost like a crosswalk. I'm going to let you answer the question, but that issue did come up.
Yeah, so we want to know your answer to what you're going to do.
I think what I would do if I lived here, I would just take the can, bring it up between the cars, and bring it right down the driveway, just like you would do it at your house. You're just going to roll it right down the driveway and put it right out the curb, just like I do at my house at home.
Okay, but what, it's not clear from your landscaping plan as to what is going in the rear. You're going to have to walk around the rear unit is going to have to walk around the condensers, and I'm not sure if that's lawn area, what's happening there. I mean, normally from your house, you're bringing it along your driveway out to the street, and you're not walking across
Some grass
landscape.
area. So we'll take a look at that and see how, I'll work with Dave Beasley and see how we can adjust it so they have a proper way to take the garbage can out.
I guess, will the parking spaces be assigned?
Not at this point, we haven't thought about that.
Okay, because I guess my question, and somewhat this relates to who's walking where, is if it is possible that the 4 spaces between the building will be occupied when someone from one of the front units wants to park there, and you're back to the same question, how are people walking through the property?
My thought process was that the 4 parking spaces in between would go to the front building, so they didn't walk as far.
Well, that's why I asked if they would be assigned.
That was my thought process. We just didn't
They
say we're
you
assigned.
just said they weren't going to be assigned, so, because logically, if I'm in Unit 2A, I want to use those parking spaces as well. And then, but then to some extent, you have the same question of that unit, if those spaces are reserved for the front unit, has to walk around their building to get to their entrance. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Owen asked you the generic question, will you comply with the tree ordinance? I guess I'm somewhat interested in terms of which of the landscaping that you're proposing would enable you to comply with that. I mean, the only thing that you have listed as trees is arborvitae, which, and you don't have enough of those.
You and I have talked about this. You're going
Correct.
to
Okay,
propose more trees.
Yes. We're willing to put a couple more trees in, but there's not much area. We have a tree in between.
Well, that's
The
why I'm
buildings over
asking,
here.
as to,
We have a couple
how you're
trees in-
going to comply.
In the front. We could possibly add 1 or 2 more trees in the rear property along the south property line towards the rear, possibly, depending on what type of trees they are. And other than that, we can comply by donating part of the ordinances that you could.
Okay, but I think, and you can do it through the engineer since it's on the site plan, but I think by next time, I want to know specifically how you're complying, and not maybe we can add a tree here, and maybe we can add a tree here, and maybe we'll give some money to a fund.
Got it.
And then and without going through everything, you indicated you were using native species in there. You were proposing red Japanese barberry, which doesn't quite fit the definition of native in New Jersey.
My staff went through native, but we'll check it, and I'll have Dave Beasley, the engineer,
Okay.
testify to it.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from members of the board?
Question.
Mr. Church?
How many trees are you taking down?
About 20 trees.
20 trees have to be replaced, or what's the other thing you have to do?
There's a
ordinance-
fee per
yeah,
tree. We're
it's-
going to look into replacing the trees. We'll have a plan next time we get here.
Any other questions, right? Mr. Moore?
Right, because I guess going along with the trees, one would think about irrigation. Is that erosion? I'm sorry, erosion. And just, making sure that the soil is solid enough to not impact any of the neighbors, or since it's on a downward slope or on a hill, the water, the runoff of the water and all that.
Yeah, no. We'll have my engineer here next meeting, and my engineer designed a complete storm drainage system with storm drainage retention, like it's underground, that seeps back into the earth, stores it, and seeps it back in. So that will take care of any runoff. We have a soil erosion sediment control plan during construction that I have to adhere to, with filter fences and filter fabric fence and hay bales and all other prevention material to to worry about runoff during construction, so.
In this way, also in the winter, if it rains or something like that, no one slips since it's on this slope already.
We'll ask him to address it.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? Are there any members of the audience who are now partially hidden who have any questions for this witness? Mr. Owen, anything further for this evening?
Not tonight, not this evening.
Okay, so the hearing in this matter will be continued until September 18th. There will be no further notice of the hearing. Is an extension of time necessary?
No, an extension of time.
Okay, so we will see you on September 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. A second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good one. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a great one.
We will pay for this.
6 or 7. I think it was way too much. The building was like, you know, it was all like, yeah, it looked kind of like one of those motels, like a strip motel.